Before wading into the murky and turbulent waters of revitalization and restructuring, I felt a little bit of the turbulence yesterday, that which was spoken or unspoken. I believe it's important for me to name several presumptions that I carry within myself as I come to you these days. First, I presume that we are on the same evangelical adventure or journey together, the pursuit of the radical evangelical life. Second, I presume that we profess the same commitment to the development of our life with God, our life with our brothers, and our life as missionaries, that we are mission, as Pope Francis reminds us in Evangelii Gaudium, in service to the church and the world. Third, I presume that God is calling us to life, not to death. God is calling us to conversion, to renewal, to revitalization, and to embracing a future that will be radically different from the past or the present, because it embraces the fullness of God's vision for the life of the world, not our tiny and limited visions. Fourth, I assume that all of us have come to this meeting with open minds and hearts, and that all of us are committed to a process begun in its current form during and following the meetings in Milwaukee and Racine. I believe this process offers us the possibility of revisiting our lives as friars minor in the United States and the world, to re-energize our brothers, refound our fraternities, redirect our missionary efforts to embrace the world that is rapidly changing. This, by the way, became very clear in the course of the general chapter, the impact of the radical changes taking place in the world. There was tremendous conflict at the beginning and in the middle of the chapter. Part of it had to do with the financial misconduct, misappropriations, but also some of it had to do with the fact that we were no longer only talking about change taking place in the world out there, but we began to realize how deep the changes are affecting us as a brotherhood. I'm not only talking about challenges to our vision and to our commitment to a radical evangelical life. I'm talking about the shifts that are taking place from north to south and east in the context of the order. We know that Africa and Asia in particular are the two areas of at least numerical growth for the life of the order today. And that even countries in South and Latin America, South America, and Eastern Europe continue to demonstrate this tendency or this move toward growth. This will require a change. It's no longer Assisi that is the center of the world, nor Italy, nor Europe. It's now perhaps Africa and Asia and Latin America. And we need to adjust our sights and our visions in light of that. You're finding the same thing true, I think, if that report is correct, but if not only that, but if the Pew Foundation and a number of other research foundations in the United States are suggesting, Cara, etc., that the Sun Belt and the Southern Belt are becoming areas of tremendous growth for Catholicism and for the possibility of the future of Catholicism in the United States. That doesn't mean everyone runs off and abandons where they are, the north, the central, the other parts. But it does mean that maybe we need to, as a brotherhood in the United States, not wait for whatever processes of restructuring will take place, but between the 7 provinces, begin to think and plan and organize a mission, some type of future mission for these regions that could carry forth the vision and charism of the order, and to share that with this numerical expansion. But not only numerical expansion, there's also increasing diversity that's coming with it. So we can't simply carry old methods to these new areas. We have to invent new methods, new ways of responding to the gospel. And I call them new old ways, which I'll come to a little later on. I think that the theme of revitalization is big air in the life of the order today. Closely linked to this theme are processes for restructuring that go in multiple directions. Some of you know that there are entities of the order where there is contraction, if that would be a word to use, a reduction in the number of entities, the most recent being that of Spain. Spain, which had 8 provinces and 1 custody in Peru, now has 3 provinces. 2 provinces decided to remain as they were. 6 provinces engaged in a process that led to the unification of the 6 provinces into the new province of the Immaculata, which was founded on January 1st of this year. In the opposite direction, or a different direction, in February of this year, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, we witnessed the birth of a new province. So restructuring is not a one-way experience in the history of the life of the order today. It goes in multiple ways. Most, if not all, of these processes of restructuring have had as their point of origin or destination the desire to give birth to the deeper experience of the Franciscan charism in the life of the order, the church, and the world. One of the most difficult challenges, I think, has been to find ways of articulating these 2 necessarily interrelated processes. Revitalization, which is about values that lead to a vision, and restructuring, which are about processes that lead to new structures. To do this in a language that is intelligible, meaningful, and capable of generating energy, hope, and commitment to the core values of our Franciscan life and mission. As Jack Clark Robinson made it so clear in his double helix image shared with me and the members of the FIT team, the DNA of Franciscan life involves both content and form, stability and movement, imagination and structures. I might add that in the case of the emerging entities of the order, those that are experiencing numerical expansion, restructuring does not automatically imply revitalization. As with the gospel text from Matthew 19 that we heard yesterday, revitalization comes only to the degree that we make an explicit commitment to place God at the center of our lives, and to the degree that we commit to living with and for brothers in fraternity that are engaged in God's mission to the world, as Laudate Se, the encyclical of Pope Francis reminds us, a mission that extends to the care and the protection of our Mother Earth and all forms of life. One additional challenge that you have expressed in the course of this meeting is the temptation to seek the path of least resistance, to choose those models that make little demands upon us and that risk simply changing the external forms of our lives without helping us to enter into radical conversion of life and mission. Perhaps some rethinking is in order as you move forward today and in the coming months. Perhaps you need to include in the proposal to be shared with the brothers of the 7 provinces one of the more radical models, model F or E, precisely in order to engage the brothers at a deeper level in the process of reflection for the revitalization of our lives and to make evident those values that will be most essential to the ongoing renewal of our life and our mission. Someone raised the question about a possible other alternative to the proposed models, namely that the provinces remain as they now are and form a type of federation promoting interprovincial collaboration. I'm reminded of a comment that was made in 2 different settings, one by the Minister General of the Capuchins and the other by the Minister General of the Conventuals, Mauro Iori and Marco Tasca, who jokingly stated that the order is made up of a federation of provinces, each with its own version of near absolute autonomy, that the provinces are made up of a federation of local fraternities, again, each with its own relative autonomy. Local fraternities are made up of a federation of individual friars in a fraternity, each expressing his or her own, his own relative autonomy. In the end, the good of the collective, of the common, is sacrificed on the altar of the individual and his personal needs. I think you who are provincials know exactly, or in the councils, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The immovable friars. The friars when needs come up. The individual ministries, the individual needs of the friar trump over any of the needs of the common good. The idea of federation works for the poor clergy, nuns, and their monasteries, which by definition are independent, autonomous ecclesiastical jurisdictions. Federations, however, do not work for us friars minor. because by the very nature of our evangelical identity, which is rooted in the belief that we are called to live in absolute interdependence and solidarity with and for one another, we cannot operate independently because of the fundamental and revolutionary idea of fraternity in the spiritual imagination and the practical living proposed by Francis of Assisi. We can never allow the experience of our local or provincial fraternity to be restricted by the juridical or affective structures that are meant to serve for the generation of a universal sense of brotherhood and shared mission. Our rule of life, our general constitutions, and so many more of the recent documents of the order remind us of this central conviction about the specific nature of our gospel brotherhood, the universal fraternity. I'd like now, if you would permit, I'd like to turn attention to what I would call the 7+1 core Franciscan values, which have the potential, I believe, to lead us, in the words of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, to have a dream. This dream is about identifying, embracing, and being embraced and transformed by the eternal values which are capable of evoking and provoking a revolution of mind, heart, and spirit within each of us, within the lives of each of the brothers of our respective entities. I'm speaking here about a revitalization that is about the restructuring of the inner world of each of us, a restructuring of the vital relationships that guide our lives and lead us to a deeper experience of life with God, life with the brothers, life in the church and in the world, and a restructuring of our affective as well as effective means for being a sign and symbol of the kingdom of God to a world that is desperately in need of good news. Values, dreams, and visions are not one and the same thing. Vision is what happens when we commit to the deepest values of our human, Christian, Catholic, and Franciscan identity and to the reorganization of our structures in such a way that they reflect our deepest identity as men of faith, hope, and love, men of the gospel, the church, and men committed to living fraternity with one another and with the world, and as the most authentic manner for expressing our specifically Franciscan identity. Fraternity is about identity. Vision emerges from the confusion, the chaos, the sweat, the tears, the faithful commitment to stand together, to live together, to seek the best of our ability to make evident core values in the pursuit of the gospel life, living as fraternities guided by the Beatitudes. Vision is the confirmation or certification that the manner in which the core values of our Franciscan vocation or charism are being embraced and applied in our lives is authentic, life-giving, and spiritually renewing for the individual friars and for the institutions and structures that serve as temporal containers for the promotion of ongoing formation, transformation, and conversion. In the document entitled Ite Initiate, Guidelines for the New Forms of Life and Mission of the Order of Friars Minor, I'm sure all of you read that last night. It was published in Rome in 2014 by the General Secretariat for Mission and Evangelization. 7 core values are mined from the experience of members of new fraternities that have emerged in different regions in Europe, and which seek to propose the revitalization of the life and mission of the Order of Friars Minor today. For those of you who are members of the Province of Sacred Heart, you will recall in 2011 that I participated in a fishbowl experience where I shot down the idea, where I challenged the idea of creating these new fraternities. I stand on two things today. Number one, I recognize that these communities have and are making a contribution to the life of the order. At the same time, I still share the same conviction as I expressed there. These core values should be found present in every one of our fraternities, and somehow we need to find a way to be integrated into our experiences. But for those of you who were present in 2011, I've experienced a conversion of heart, so take refuge in that. Let me explain or just list these core values of our Franciscan life and mission that are articulated in E Te Nunciante. They include the following, and none of this is new. You know the 5 priorities. It's just stated in a different way. The primacy of life of prayer and of listening to the Word of God. This is what we know already to be true of our lives. Number 2, care for the authentic and deepening of fraternal relations, which radiate a testimony of fraternal life. Number 3, a simple and sober lifestyle, giving testimony to minority. Number 4, welcoming and sharing our life with the people of God, and above all with our brothers and sisters who are poor. Number 5, evangelizing mission with a character of intergentes, itineracy, being present in unknown, difficult, and risky areas, and demonstrating closeness to the poorest of the poor, to the suffering, and to the excluded through inserted fraternities. Number 6, communion with the local church by giving testimony to our fraternity and our minority, and not simply filling posts that are needed in the local church. Number 7, our willingness to adapt and adopt forms of active collaboration with the laity and the Franciscan family. This document was written after Evangelii Gaudium, and it had that in mind, the renewal of the vocation of the laity for the life and mission of the church. To these 7 core values, I would add an 8th, which finds expression in the lived experience of the writings of Francis of Assisi and in the recent apostolic exhortation, Evangelii Gaudium, chapter 4, and in the encyclical Laudato Si of Pope Francis. And that 8th is commitment to the transversal values of justice, peace, and integrity of creation, and to working for the social transformation of the structures in society and the reconciliation and healing of the social and natural world. E Te Nunciante, this document on new forms, makes clear that the new that is so widely invoked in the recent past in the life of the church and the order reflects the ardent desire to undergo a more radical and continuous conversion of mind, heart, and soul. To be real, the document says, the new always embraces the demands of the past and the richness of its heritage, and embraces also the future with all the changes that are already perceived and already present. The new subsequently unites memory and prophecy, the return to the sources, and the longing for the future as God imagines it to be. Yesterday, you brought up a question. What is the role of the Minister General and the General Definitorium in this process, this engagement upon which this journey upon which you have embarked now for several years? I think that it's important to say that neither I nor the Definitorium can remain indifferent on the sidelines as you face and embrace the consequences of living the Franciscan charism in the U.S. today. As I mentioned earlier, we are not a federation. We are a universal fraternity, each responsible with and for one another. The General Definitory has by right and obligation the responsibility to accompany, control, encourage, and challenge you to seek new ways for revitalizing our presence in the United States and to all living as fraternities open to God's mission, which continuously challenges us to undermine all efforts to restrict our understanding and living out of the charism to the confines of our mental and geographical constructs. The General Definitory is required by the mandates of fraternal charity to accompany and to meddle in your business, since your business is our business and our business is your business. We're all in the same boat. We can't just throw out life reps when we feel like when it's comfortable. We stand together or we sing together. At the same time, the General Definitory and the Brothers of the General Courier must also be engaged in a permanent process of revitalization ourselves and to restructure our lives, the forms that we have developed to carry forward the mandates entrusted by you to us. In a concrete form, the General Definitory might need to rethink the current physical structure of the General Courier, which was conceived for a time when the order was composed of over 26,000 friars with more than 70 brothers in the service to the order. As we approach a changed reality of 13,000 friars and 39 brothers living in the General Courier, it might be time for us to review whether we should remain in the current physical structure or whether we should lead by example and move the General Courier to a new location, such as an old location, San Antonio, where it was for almost 60 years, or someplace else. Something that would reflect, to my mind, both evangelical, charismatic dimensions of our life and also the practical dimensions of revitalization. What is at the heart of the matter is not where we live, but how we live. How we live in and for God. How we live with and for one another. How we live as mission and as missionaries to the world and to all of creation. Parenthetically, one of the new and more exciting possibilities that is emerging in discussions between ourselves, the provincials and the Capuchins and the Tour, their order regular, is the form of inter-obediential fraternities to express the common nature of our Franciscan identity and evangelizing mission. Some of you are aware, I hope it's been communicated to you. If not, I hope it soon will be to all the brothers in the United States and elsewhere, a 3-year program that has been developed to promote mutual understanding, healing and reconciliation, the emergence of new structures that would allow us to live together and perhaps to open our lives to the dream, the possibility of a future reunification of the orders. In 2016, we will mark 800 years of the pardon of Assisi by focusing collectively on the ways we have done violence to one another over the course of history and to seek reconciliation. In 2017, we will commemorate the 500th anniversary of the bull of Leo XIII, Ite et Vos in Mea Mea, which divided the friars minor of the regular observance and the friar minor conventuals. We will call upon historians and specialists of our respective orders to review the literature and to propose ways by which we might renew the vital links between us. And in 2018, efforts will be made to create opportunities for sharing and collaborating on common missionary projects, and I hope with the possibility of the creation of a unified Franciscan University in Rome, sharing inter-obediential jurisdiction, and that this might find expressions in other parts of the world. In closing, I would urge you to spur the brothers in the respective provinces to seek new ways of living out our Franciscan evangelical charism here in the United States, and to keep open your experience to the life of the order of the church and the world. I urge you as leaders, and that is who you are, to lead, to stimulate the brothers to engage fully in the life of the fraternity, to deepen their life with God, and to expand their horizons of what it means to be brothers in the one universal fraternity. Yes, there are 7 provinces, but there is only one fraternity. I urge you to speak the truth to the brothers and not to promote false ideas of what this process of revitalization and the potential for restructuring of the 7 provinces might portend for their lives. Do not tell lies. Speak the truth. The brothers need to hear the truth. I urge each of you to do all you can, both individually and collectively, as the definitory of the 7 provinces, to make visible and enticing the 7+1 core values of our Franciscan life, to model these in your relationships with one another within your respective definitories, and to challenge the brothers to pursue these values and not to succumb to the threats of individualism, isolationism, and the annihilation of the fraternity, a dangerous consequence of becoming a virtual person. I urge you to come to a new understanding of the historical heritage and beauty of your 7 provinces, our 7 provinces, in which history becomes prologue, setting the stage for the rich and enticing, exciting future that God is preparing for the friars and for the order in the United States. I urge you to get the friars moving again. We are members of a movement. We have not made that vow to stabilitas loc, but rather to stabilitas evangelicum, or whatever, how you want to best express it in Latin, if such a term exists. Our stability does not come from structures or geographical locations, but as we heard yesterday from Rob in his presentation yesterday morning, and something we know already to be true for ourselves, our stability comes from the enduring values of the gospel, expressed in those Franciscan values, expressed in the daily taking up the cross of Jesus and following in his footsteps. We are not called to maintain that which has served us well, but which for one reason or another might no longer be capable of serving us. We are called to reclaim the charismatic, itinerant nature of our gospel life, walking by faith and not by sight, nor by fear, nor by a false sense of historical security. Neither you nor I have the right to allow a province to choose death. We have only the obligation to choose life, in whatever form that might need to take. Believe and trust in God's promise to be with you, to be with us always, even in the midst of diminishment, aging, and an uncertain future. Believe in the power of fraternity and the universal nature of our Franciscan charism that allows us, all of us, to recognize one another as brothers pursuing the same evangelical goals, values. Believe that the future is in God's hands and that God is calling us to step out in the same radical trust that Francis of Assisi and the early brothers demonstrated in their lives, a radical trust expressed in the lives of the great biblical figures of faith, Abraham and Sarah, Moses and Miriam, Mary and Joseph. Perhaps if for nothing else, some of your brothers here, even this time, you said, congratulations, thank you for serving as Minister General. I'm not sure what you're thanking me for. Are you thanking me not because I wanted to, but because I recognized that God was challenging me to do so? I had to leave behind my province. I had to leave behind my country, the usual structures in which I lived, in order to respond to what God was calling me to. I hope that's what you were thanking me for, and not thanking me simply because you're proud that there's an American or from St. Louis province serving as Minister General. I hope that you are proud that you have a brother who models, not in all of my life, I'm a sinner worse than any of you, but who tries to believe in the promise that God has made. And that's what I challenge each of you to do. I challenge the brothers of the United States to believe in the promise that God has made to us, not the promise of history. This is our future. Let us begin, brothers. For till now, we have done little or nothing. Thank you for your kind attention.